When my daughter-in-law banned me from my grandson's birthday party because I smell bad, I changed the locks on my house and now there's no party. I don't know where to begin. I've read hundreds of posts here, but now that I'm sitting down to write my own, I'm unsure what information to include or leave out. I'm 66 years old, a single man. I lost my wife 3 years ago, and since then I've been alone. Honestly, I'm heartbroken. Next Sunday is my grandson's birthday, and my daughter-in-law hasn't invited me to the party. I didn't even know there was a party planned until my friend, who's her neighbor, mentioned that his granddaughter received an invitation to my grandson's birthday. He didn't know I hadn't been invited. We walked together in the mornings, and during our walk he told me about the party. It was shocking because I'm very close to my grandson and he loves me too. He's turning 1 next Sunday. When my friend mentioned the party, I thought it was a small cake-cutting event with just the neighborhood kids. But he said it was going to be a big party, not just for kids but with adults invited too. The invitation listed the child plus one, and it included dinner. This was unbelievable because my son isn't financially well off enough to throw such an extravagant party for his son. I told my friend he was exaggerating, but then he sent me a photo of the invitation. He was right, the party looked big. It left me wondering why I wasn't invited, and it made me anxious. To calm myself, I thought maybe they forgot to invite me or the invitation was still on its way. With 12 days left until the party, my anxiety grew, so I went to see my grandson. When I arrived, I saw my daughter-in-law engrossed in her phone while my grandson played alone on the lawn. I picked him up and played with him while she watched from the window. My daughter-in-law has always resented me. She's never liked me or my late wife. I don't fully understand why, but perhaps she thinks we're beneath her. She comes from a wealthy family while we're not rich. We're not poor either, but we don't have the kind of money her father does. It's also about social status. Her father is a lawyer while I'm just a mechanic with a repair shop. If she's proud of her father's wealth, it's an empty pride because he despises her and doesn't give her a cent, even when she needs it most. Last year, during COVID, when my son lost his job, their finances took a hard hit. She's a stay-at-home mom, so they relied on one income. Losing that job was a huge blow, and they started living off their savings, which eventually ran out. My repair shop business also slowed down during the lockdown, but I helped them as much as I could, despite my own tight finances. Their situation got so bad they couldn't pay rent and received an eviction notice. I was living alone, so I offered to let them move into my 2-bedroom house, which has a room for the kids, while I moved into the shop. I could have stayed in the house with them, but I knew my daughter-in-law would be uncomfortable around me. That's the background of my situation. When I visited my grandson that morning, I hoped my daughter-in-law would mention the birthday plans, but to my disappointment, she didn't say a word. Until then, I'd hoped she'd simply forgotten to invite me, but it became clear she didn't want me there. It breaks my heart to think what I did to deserve this treatment. I've always tried to make their lives easier, helping them, and this is what I get in return. Update 1. Thanks for all the kind words. You're right, parents-in-law, especially in our 60s, are often treated like third-class citizens by our daughters-in-law. Feels so lonely in this world. Your 60s are a tough time, too old to live fully yet too young to die. I tell you, my friend, if you have a partner in your 50s or 60s, cherish them because you'll miss them like hell. I never felt the need for friends until I lost my wife, and now my life feels so empty. Yesterday, my son called and said they'd drop off my grandson because they were going shopping. Yes, I watched my grandson for them since hiring a babysitter costs money, and this old man offers free service. They know how to exploit me emotionally, financially, and in every way possible. When they returned to pick him up, I asked my son if they'd finished shopping for the party. His face went pale. Their car was filled with stuff in the back seat, with some decorative items sticking out of the rear window. He brushed it off, saying, Oh no, no party. We just got some toys for the baby, that's all. He's not good at lying. I looked at him sternly and said I'd seen the invitation given to the neighbors. Before he could respond, my daughter-in-law yelled, "So what? Are you upset because you needed an invitation to a kid's birthday party? Are you a child?" Her defensiveness infuriated me, but I calmly replied, "Watch your tone, ma'am. My son said he'd visit the next day to sort things out, but I waited and he never showed up. How naive of me to think he'd come to apologize for his wife's behavior and invite me to the party. I know what you're thinking, foolish old man. That's me. I wondered how they could afford such a big party, then realized they were throwing it with my money. Last month, my son borrowed money from me to cover his car payment, saying he was 2 months behind and the bank was after him. He promised to pay me back this month. I know he never repays me when he borrows money, but I lend it to him anyway. I'm lenient with him because he's my only family, and with only a few years left, what am I going to do with my money? It'll go to him eventually, so why not give it when he needs it? I've never asked him to repay me until now, but today I called and demanded the money I lent him last month. I said, "You promised to pay it back this month, right? So where is it?" He never expected his dad to ask for the money back. I told him I wanted it by the end of the week as promised. He was shocked but agreed. That afternoon, he visited, and I confronted him about his wife's resentment toward me. He admitted he's aware of it but can't do much. I said, "Of course you can't force your wife to like me, but you can stop lying to me for money. I know you lied about the car payment to borrow money for this birthday party. I also know this party isn't just for kids. Parents are invited and it includes dinner." "Really? You have enough money to feed your friends and neighbors but not for me? Whose money are you using for this event?" After my outburst, he said, "Are you mad because we didn't invite you?" "If so, it wasn't me. Sandra made the guest list." I shouted, "And you have no say in that? Is Sandra's decision some kind of unchangeable law? Are you okay with your wife excluding your father from your son's first birthday for no reason?" He went silent with a grim face. What else could he do? He's too weak to stand up to his narcissistic wife and too dependent on my money to defend himself. Sometimes I blame myself for not raising a stronger son. Update 2. I was determined not to seek revenge, but guess what I did? Sandra crossed every line of toxicity and manipulation on the birthday. I was sitting in a corner of my shop, drinking and brooding, when I got a call from my son. I was foolish enough to think maybe his guilty conscience had kicked in, and he was calling to invite me to the party. Don't judge me for saying I even bought gifts for my grandson, thinking if they invited me at the last minute, I'd need to rush. I know I've reached peak desperation. Even if they didn't invite me, I figured I owed my grandson a gift and would give it to him the next day. But to crush my hopes, the call was about watching my grandson because my son had to rush to the office for an emergency. He said Sandra had gone to pick up her parents from the airport. Hearing this, I lost it. Her parents are flying in from 2 states away, but I'm not invited and I live a block away. Before I could say anything, he said he was already in his car, leaving the baby alone in the crib, so I should hurry. Without thinking twice, I ran to watch my grandson. While playing with him, the phone rang. I ignored it a few times, but it kept buzzing, so I thought it might be an emergency and answered. It was Sandra, thinking she was talking to my son. She was calling to give instructions about decorations as he wasn't answering his phone. She got mad hearing my voice. I told her I wasn't invading her house. My son asked me to watch their son because of an urgent work issue. She yelled, demanding I leave because she didn't want her parents to see me. She said I smell like fuel and oil and my hands and clothes are dirty with grease. I look filthy and she didn't want her parents or anyone to see me in her house. I felt humiliated. It was outrageous. I cried like a baby holding my grandson in my arms. I can't explain how awful I felt. I quickly got up to leave because if she arrived and saw me, she'd berate me mercilessly. As I locked the door behind me, a thought hit me. Damn it, this is my house. Yes, I let them live in my house as a gesture of goodwill, and no, they don't pay rent. I thought, lady, I'm done being a doormat. I quickly called my workers with their toolboxes, and they helped me change the locks on the house. They packed their clothes and belongings and dumped them on the front porch in boxes from the shop. All the big items like furniture and electronics were mine. They didn't bring any. After that, I held my grandson and strolled on the front lawn, waiting for Sandra to arrive. As soon as I saw her car pull into the driveway, I approached, handed her the baby through the window, and walked back to my shop. She put the baby in the car, or maybe gave him to her parents, and came after me, yelling, asking why I was still there when she told me to leave. I didn't even look at her or respond, just said, "If you need help moving your stuff, call me." Before she could react or understand, I left. Minutes later, my phone was blowing up with her calls. I ignored them. Then she sent voice messages asking why the lock wouldn't open and why their things were outside. I laughed at her messages, thinking, lady, take the hint, you're homeless now. I went to my shop and sat at the entrance, knowing she or my son would show up soon. Sure enough, there she was rushing toward me. I said, before you get any bad ideas, let me tell you there are cameras everywhere and they're fully functional. She kept yelling, repeating why the house wouldn't open. I told her, I changed the locks and the key is inside the shop, which smells of oil and grease. Want to touch that key? She was stunned, pulling her hair and screaming, asking why I changed the locks. I looked at her sternly and said, remember, that house is mine. I did you a favor letting you live there. She interrupted, then why did you throw our stuff out? I said, because I changed my mind. I don't want you living there anymore. She stomped her foot, went back to her car and left. I knew this wasn't over. After a while, my son showed up with red eyes from crying, his manipulation tactic. He said, Dad, please give us the keys. I promise Sandra will be nice to you and apologize. I cut him off. Really? Sandra will apologize? Where is she? His face lit up and he asked if she apologized, would I give them the house back? I said, I don't know, I might consider it depending on how she does it. He got up to call Sandra, and from how he was talking, it seemed she wasn't ready to apologize. But within 10 minutes she arrived. She started with, look, I'm sorry. I said, wait, let's sit inside the shop and talk. She was reluctant to enter, but my son gave her a look and she followed, covering her face with a napkin. Her apology felt like she was doing me a favor. She said, fine, I'm sorry. I won't yell at you again. Give us the keys. My parents are waiting outside, tired from their trip. I was stunned by her tone. I looked at my son with wide eyes. She continued, okay, I'm sorry again. Stop making faces. Our guests are arriving soon and we need to set up. And yes, you can join the party, but please wear clean clothes. I couldn't stand her tone anymore. I stood up and shouted, get out. Just get out and never show your face here again. You're not getting the house back, not even when I die. Instead of apologizing for her behavior, she started yelling at my son. See, I told you he wouldn't listen. We should call the police. He pushed her hands away and shouted back, it's his house. We can't call the police on him. They'll criticize us for mistreating him. They left the shop, yelling at each other. My friend next door said Sandra, and my son returned and told her parents what happened, perhaps trying to twist the truth. When my son stepped in and told the whole truth, her parents were heard yelling at her. Update 3. My deadbeat son showed up at my door again. It was a week after I kicked them out, nearly midnight, when I heard his knock. I opened the door and told him I had no business with him. He took my hands, begging to be let back into the house, saying they'd been living in their car for a week and didn't have enough money to rent another place. He said it's hard to make ends meet even for household expenses and started crying, saying he couldn't afford rent. I told him, "Why don't you ask your spoiled wife to get a job?" He said she refuses to work, believing she's a prize for him because she's out of his league. I burst out laughing. "Sure, then show off your trophy to get bread. This old man has done enough for you all." I said, "Your wife has always been narcissistic toward me, yet I supported you. I gave up my house and lived in the garage because I loved you and wanted you to be comfortable. What did I get in return? You let your wife humiliate me. Don't you have the guts to take a stand? If you have a golden wife you can't upset, then live with that gold and don't come to me for help." He tried his last card, saying, "Please, Dad, give us the house for your grandson's sake." I replied, "Enough emotional manipulation. Don't dare blackmail me anymore. You've extorted my money and house, saying, 'Dad, please don't do this for your son's sake.' Now that card isn't working, you're using your son to get your way. Get out, you're not getting anything." The next day he showed up with his wife and son. I said, "I won't accept an apology. It's not about birthday invitations. The hatred is deep-rooted. She hates me for my job, thinking it's insignificant. I won't let anyone mock my profession. Mechanic work may be dirty and our hands may be stained with oil and grease, but it involves skill. What do you have? You're unemployed just because you're beautiful, and your dad being a lawyer doesn't give you the right to humiliate others." She fell to her knees, begging for forgiveness, but I slammed the door in her face. I want no contact with that toxic woman and her spineless husband. I know it's not the end of the world for them to be kicked out. They'll eventually rebuild their lives. I also know they'll never forgive me and will likely poison my grandson against me. But that's fine. I've learned the hard way that no matter how much you give, some people will never appreciate you. I'm okay with that now. I'm okay being called a grumpy, selfish old man who kicked out his son, daughter-in-law, and one-year-old grandson to live on the streets. My only regret is for my grandson. That little soul has no idea what kind of parents he has, living an uncomfortable life because of their stupidity, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Update 4. My daughter-in-law tried to break into my house but failed, and the police took her away. After her pathetic attempt at an apology, she tried sneaking into my house in the middle of the night, breaking a window to get in. As an old man with light sleep, I heard her and called the police, thinking it was a burglar. I'm glad my only weapon is at the shop, or things could have turned ugly. Even if I'd known it was her, I'd have called the police. She was already inside looking for the door keys when the police arrived and I turned on the lights. She couldn't escape and was detained for attempted burglary. She called my son, who came to my house the next morning, yelling about what I'd done. He said my grandson couldn't be without his mother and asked if I could watch him while he tried to get her out of jail, though I don't know how he'd afford it. I refused and said I was considering calling Child Protective Services because they're clearly not good parents. He left, though my threat wasn't empty. I'm seriously considering it, as some commenters have suggested. Update 5. There's good and bad news in this update, though none bad for me. First, my daughter-in-law's father came to help her, though he was furious. Not just because she was in jail, but because the truth came out the day they arrived for the birthday party. He helped her get out of jail but reportedly cut contact with her afterward. I know this because my son told me when he came begging for the house back. Later that day, I called Child Protective Services, who took my grandson and placed him with me, the closest direct relative. I don't know what happens next, as this is temporary, but I'm happy to spend time with my grandson. We even celebrated his birthday together and I gave him my gifts. He's too young to understand what's happening, though he senses something.